Let's take a look at our halftime highlights as we get the culmination of a month in Utah with an early goal. 4th minute penalty, Sharples bringing down Mewis. They would score on that.
Earliest goal of the tournament, first PK goal of the tournament. First NWSL goal for Sophie Schmidt since 2014, getting past Alyssa Nair to put the dash up early, 1-0. Just a few minutes later, Chicago coming down the field, crossing it in. Not quite getting ahead on it. Well, McCaskill does get ahead on it, but hits the post. I still can't believe she didn't find net on that, what's basically Chicago's best chance of the first half, especially with Jane Campbell down in front of the box.
Yeah, no question. McCaskill, hands to her head, thought she had an equalizing goal. The pressure would continue from Chicago, though. Katie Johnson from distance.
Campbell coming down on that one easily.
Vlatko Ananovsky, the former head coach of FCKC, the current U.S. women's national team coach, is in the building for this final. And actually an interview just aired rather on CBS in the U.S. with Vlatko Ananovsky that rather had just been recorded in the days leading up to this final, I should say. He has watched the vast majority of this tournament from Zions Bank Stadium.
He still won't tell us what's in his notebook.
Nope, we'll never know. Devastating. It's Prince for Houston. They came out and blitzed Chicago early. Another ball across. Seeking out Basali at the near post. If it had snuck through, Daly certainly would have stuffed it home.
Smart play by Sarah Gordon. Get back, send that straight out for a corner. Gordon, who her breakout year was last year, getting more minutes and starts than she'd ever had in a season for Chicago. One of 2 soccer moms on the Chicago roster, one of just 5 in the tournament.
It's Cece Kaiser, and a header knocked to goal, swiped aside. Naughton nearly scored on her former club. It was a great stop in the end from Nair. Keep that over the bar.
Naughton just 1 goal in her NWSL career, coming last year against Utah.
Another corner to come. All eyes there on Groom and Naughton at the back post. Schmidt as well, who's been a target. All again off the fists of Nair. Poor clearance, Chapman. Kaiser kept herself on side.
Now Vazali bringing it up the side. Turns
Hill.
over for Chicago.
Hill pushes ahead. It's Johnson.
Oyster still going strong after missing the semifinal, fracturing a rib in the quarterfinal, but back at it.
What a beast. McCaskill got flicked away again by Megan Oyster.
And of course, Oyster knows what it's like to play a really tense final. UCLA winning the 2013 NCAA championship 1-0 on an extra time goal. Of course, we won't have any of extra time today if it's tied at the end of regulation. Go straight to penalties.
Talked a lot about Oyster playing with a fractured rib. Shea Groom played with a broken rib back in 2017, so has someone to rely on. Yep.
Does that need to be a stat category in my almanac?
Games played with broken ribs?
Yes.
DiBernardo. McCaskill. Savannah McCaskill floats over the box. Ertz. Not a touch to that, forcing Oyster into conceding a corner. The pendulum is swung. Another corner for Chicago. Ertz plays it quickly. A chance to launch a ball over the penalty area. There's Sharples, who they noted has a little more height, listed 5'10", 5'11".
Houston picking up a lot of height with their offseason acquisitions. And now CC Kaiser on the field.
Kaiser 5'8", Naughton listed 5'10", Oyster 5'8". Not a traditional set-piece power, as we discussed in the first half, but have a few more weapons now. They are missing their primary set-piece taker, Christy Mewis. They've been a high boot involved in that earlier tussle for the ball. Hansen.
And we're hoping to get an update.
Mewis came out at the half-hour mark and was replaced by CC Kaiser after she'd drawn the penalty in the 5th minute. Indeed, we're hoping to find out how she's doing. Maybe a chance here for Houston to win the ball high up the field. It's Daly. Comfortable for Nair. Knuckled a bit.
And we're hearing it is a hamstring issue for Mewis, so not the severe injury that we saw her suffer 2 years ago when she tore her ACL, but waiting for more details.
Maybe something here for St. George. Goal kick. Michelle Prince speaking back to the referee about that. Kaya Koroleva, what do you see?
Michelle Prince, picked by Houston in the 2017 draft. She's been a Canadian allocation all 4 seasons with Houston. But we haven't seen the best of her yet.
And Hill this time is offside. These ARs have had a difficult time with Houston. And with Chicago as we've gone along. Watt, Hill, Daly. This is certainly a game where you see how many miles you've run at the end.
Now, Coach Clarkson took his blazer off, Mike. What does that mean? Is he going to the mattresses?
Well, Rory Dame still has his hoodie on, so...
He always has his hoodie on. He's not allowed to take that off.
That means 6 more weeks of summer.
Yes.
Of course, one of the big narratives, perhaps, that came out of the Chicago game last time out, an image of Rory Dames holding his fist out, waiting for a bump from Rachel Hill, never getting one. But it had occurred before the camera panned, and he kept it out there to say, no, really good job. Well, they took a picture of training, all's well. Nair under pressure, and Daly continued to pursue.
Yeah, it's too easy to read things into just a few seconds of sideline coverage, right? We should offer a second stream that's just sideline cam.
I don't know
Bench
that the coaches
cam.
would agree to that.
Well, of course not.
No.
Still no subs for either, well, still no subs for Chicago. Houston, of course, making the early sub.
Due to injury, so nothing tactically yet. They have 2 windows left. Prince would have taken an epic amount of curl, and it just never came in.
And just like all the previous matches, teams can use up to 5 subs each. No extra time if tied at end of a regulation. It would go straight to penalties.
And you do have to make your change, I believe, before penalties unless an injury is involved.
And it would have to be an injury to the goalkeeper. So when the whistle blows, you have to have your shooters on the field.
Not that either of these goalkeepers are getting yanked in penalties. Campbell's played every game for the Dash now going back 2+ years.
3+ at this point.
McCaskill brought down Watt. Hasn't scored yet in the run of play. Bounces off a deflection to Jane Campbell. Looking for her first Red Stars goal. There was a bit of redemption in that she scored a penalty in their quarterfinal match.
McCaskill sending the ball into Watt. Watt juking around 2 marks, but Jane Campbell comes down on that ball. Watt's done so much work for the Red Stars all tournament. She leads in shots, not a lot of shots on goal, but you know, it feels like at some point it's gonna pay off. Even if she comes away out of this tournament without a goal, you've seen what she can provide to the Red Stars.
Absolutely. The talk was about characteristics more so than anything that they wanted to see out of her as they mold their attack for the future. Sam Kerr goes to Chelsea over the offseason. They bring in a handful of players to try and revitalize the attack. And in the case of Kalia Watt, even Rory Dames told us, okay, you missed what in the end was a nearly open goal in the quarterfinal. Could have prevented us from going to penalties in the quarters to begin with. But you did beat 4 players to do it, and very few can achieve that kind of individual creativity. So everything's there, just the finishing touch, which in a 24-game season one imagined would come. Is it here? Hill for Campbell. Easy save.
And Kalia Watt did convert one of Chicago's 4 penalties in that shootout. The only team that converted all of its attempts. Hill right on target, but right to Jane Campbell. Still 1-0 into the 56th minute. Yeah, we had those 3 penalty kick shootouts back to back in the quarterfinals before we finally got, what, a total of 6 goals in the 2 semifinals.
I told everybody we had 20 goals in the quarterfinals. 19 were penalties.
You're messing up my stats when you do that, Mike.
Yeah, that's the truth. Bouncing down to Hill. She was offside.
Yeah, I know some fans were confused at the beginning of the tournament when, you know, they announced like these stats aren't going to be part of the regular season stats, and fans were worried like these stats don't count. Like, no, they count. It's just a separate category. You know, like if you're playing for your European club and you have your league stats, your Champions League stats, your cup stats, right? These are your cup stats.
The FA Cup plus the Premier League plus
Champions League or
Europa. Indeed, all competitions is your all-encompassing.
Right.
And because the NWSL hasn't had other competitions, hasn't proven all that vital outside of the postseason.
So say Rachel Daly gets a goal today, she will tie Kalia Watt as the goal leader across all competitions for Houston Dash.
It's a throw for Groom. We starred on those FCKC teams, competing for titles every year.
I love that she got to play with her hometown team to start her NWSL career, and then several years later she comes back to her second home state, Texas, where she played at A&M for 4 seasons.
For the great G. Guerreri. There is no man on the planet quite like G.
And I can't believe the Dash took this long to finally sign an Aggie. I mean, Allie Bailey did play with the Dash as an amateur in 2015, but like, sign an Aggie.
Aggie went in the first round, but injured her knee with North Carolina early on in this tournament. Allie Watt. Abby Smith, the Texas Longhorn player, star goalkeeper for Utah Royals FC. Longhorn State's well represented. It's decently represented.
Did you say the Longhorn State?
That's what I'm going with.
It's the Lone Star State.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Aggies would accept living in Texas if it was called the Lone Star State. I mean, the Longhorn State.
Yeah, right.
But I knew what you meant. Got some Tech players, some TCU players.
Yeah.
Now we just need some Rice and U of H players. Chapman coaching at Rice University now.
Naughton. Throw for Houston.
It's been interesting to see the difference between these 2 teams over the course of the tournament. Houston not as strong defensively to start, you know, allowing 3 goals in that first tournament. They've allowed none in the quarters and semifinals, whereas Chicago defensively were really strong and took a while to find their offense, but they've allowed 3 goals when you combine the quarter, semi, in the final so far. But bottom line, it's whoever comes out on top in this game, right? Stats only mean so much.
Chicago now has trailed for 55 minutes. Gordon back to Nair.
And we are approaching that zone where we've seen subs start to roll in. Tactical subs, also resting. Of course, obviously, you don't have to rest anybody's legs for our next game after this, right? We don't know when NWSL is going to play again.
Gordon once again. Gordon once more. Had a really compelling interview with Grant Wall early on in this tournament. Said at no point in her NWSL career she felt more supported as a mother than over the course of this tournament. We've heard that from several moms. Maybe most notably to us, Jess McDonald, who we spoke to from North Carolina before the opening game.
Another offside call for Chicago. Well, I love that the league reached out to the mom specifically and say, what do we need to do to make you comfortable coming to Utah? Yeah, same play we saw before with Rachel Hill, just a little bit faster than the pass itself. One of Chicago's assistants not really happy with that call, but Katja Koroleva saying, hey, I've done this before. Chill.
Not my first final. It was part of the CONCACAF delegation to the World Cup in 19. Yellow card to the assistant coach. One more of those and you're gone.
First coach to get a yellow all tournament. And it was just last year that the international rules were changed for a referee to be able to issue a yellow to a coach on the bench.
Now Scott Parkinson, Rory Dame's lead assistant. Free kick. In the background, you saw Surfin' TV. She's known on Twitter, the camera person under the umbrella. Another foul, another free kick.
Getting feisty. Let's look at Christy Mewis on the bench. We heard a hamstring issue. It was her work that created the penalty kick opportunity that put Houston ahead.
Told by a team official, apparently a hamstring injury. It's going to be a corner here for Houston. If they can double their lead, all the pressure onto Chicago's shoulders the rest of the way. It's an early run. Now Daly delivers back post. Too high for Cece Kaiser.
Kaiser still looking for her first pro goal after tearing up the record books at Ole Miss. When I called the Texas A&M Houston Dash preseason game last year in College Station, the Texas A&M announcer said he was so happy to see her graduate so that she wouldn't she wouldn't have to terrorize the Aggie defense anymore.
So throw the other way real quick. One more note on Jen, the camera person at the end of the field. I love her Twitter bio. She's the only female camera person in Utah covering this tournament. This is a top-notch crew in Salt Lake City, and they have been throughout the tournament. A little trouble here. Big collision with Nair, dropping her shoulder, and a little bit of a struggle walking away. But she said, I played and now I shoot. Girls can shoot as a camera person. This is her camera right now.
Nice.
From the end line.
And what's her Twitter handle again?
@SurfinTV.
Nice.
Just outstanding. So kudos to her and the entire crew in Utah. Like Roth said, she is just a phenomenal camera op.
And they've had to be in the bubble too.
Yep. Daly Daly played a curling ball out in front. Maybe have Prince in mind. Corner.
And Micah's dash keep threatening Chicago's goal. We can mention that they've now set a new club record for consecutive minutes without allowing a goal. They're up at 318 right now, breaking a record that the club set back in June 2015.
Cross lifted, Kaiser header is over from Naughton. There might be something there. Kaiser and Naughton have combined on corners a couple times now, dangerously.
And we've never seen this part of Kaiser's game, as she's often been that late sub. And there's usually been a player like Mewis or Christine Nairn or even Daly that's taking the corners. First time that we've seen CeCe Kaiser take corners for the dash.
Up the line for Vasali. Soccer fans, the official shop of the NWSL is now open. Visit NWSLshop.com now. Sign up to receive special offers and promotions. NWSLshop.com, the official place to gear up and support your favorite team.
Merch for all existing 9 teams plus 2021 expansion side Louisville. International shipping available. NWSL Challenge Cup merch available too.
Hill, free kick, Chicago. What a place to take one.
We've seen how dangerous Savannah McCaskill can be on these free kicks. She had the game-winning goal the other night against Sky Blue and the game-winning assist in Chicago's other win.
Oh, the juices are flowing now. What an opportunity this could be for the Red Stars to level this thing. In the 62nd minute, Houston set a team record for longest stretch without allowing a goal. So with the record in tow, they hope it extends. It's McCaskill on the free kick. Lifted over by Campbell just narrowly. It sat on her palms, and then she forced it over the top.
Just to add some extra drama to the Chaos Cup, right? Great bullet from McCaskill right to Jane Campbell. Gets both her hands on it, pops up and over. Little help from the post to keep that over. Out for corner for Chicago.
You see Ertz in the middle of your screen, closest to the penalty spot. There's the service, over Ertz, header, Sharples. Hill tried to get a piece. Floated up now by Chapman. Wound toward the corner flag. This will be a throw. That is a calm ball out of pressure from Sophie Schmidt.
Calm's really the best way to describe her leadership skills. Big acquisition for Houston last year, especially as an allocated Canadian player.
This is the end of the line for Kayla Sharples. Conceded the penalty, perhaps a bit unlucky to do so. Got beaten by Christy Mewis. And in her second pro start, replaced by Zoe Goralski.
Goralski, a draftee out of UCLA. She was on that NCAA champion team for 2013, along with Houston's Megan Oyster.
Tore ACL in 2013, but along for the ride. UCLA, correct me if I'm wrong, most players in the league that were eligible for the tournament?
Correct.
Still some Jill Ellis fingerprints there, too.
So her era is slowly disappearing, right?
It is.
We have much more Amanda Cromwell era of UCLA. Amanda Cromwell, one of those 14 U.S. national teamers that's part of the investor group for the LA expansion.
Love it. Adjusted back and circulated out by Chapman. You've got players like Chapman, UAB, LSU. You've got McCaskill, South Carolina. The burgeoning collegiate soccer scene growing beyond Pac-12 and the ACC.
Every year for the draft, I get to say, this is the first player drafted from Butler, from
Nebraska,
Northwestern, from yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps it exciting.
That case, Ole Miss, LSU. Daly. That's a great ball into space. Long run for Kaiser. Got it by Gordon, and then in steps St. George. Floated ball. This is onside, and that's perfect defense. Knock that back.
Calmly played by Jane Campbell, not booted out, but sent downfield. Mike, I know many people think that CeCe Kaiser was the first drafted out of Ole Miss, but it was actually Dash's draft pick in 2014, Rafael Souza.
Wow.
Played the inaugural season with the Dash. I think she's now playing in China professionally. Still plays with the Brazilian national team.
Bernardo's a bit of a limp to her walk.
DiBernardo, one of three players on Chicago that has played every single playoff game in club history, along with, of course, Danielle Colaprico, Julie Ertz. They've started every single knockout game this club has played.
Chicago came into this tournament with a very different opinion than Houston. Houston wanted to be feared by their own admission. They said this was a time to change the culture and the perception around their franchise. For Chicago, they came in trying to get as many minutes for as many players as possible, maybe make a run at things once they got there. Rory Dames said they did indeed pack their suitcases ahead of the semifinal. The final wasn't their end-all be-all, although they are happy to be here, a chance to compete for a trophy. Albeit the one they came so close to in 2019, a bit different. Back to Nair.
The scoreline might not show it, but Chicago has had more shots in this game than any other game in the tournament, and tied their high for shots on target with 4, but none of them converting, unlike in the semi, 4 shots on target, 3 going in.
In the case of Chicago, they think they got all the intel they needed. They felt they wouldn't push a player if they weren't 100%. Tierna Davidson actually injured her other foot. She came in with a foot injury, simply a juggling exercise while warming up. It just felt like every time they took a step forward injury-wise, they went one back. No Gatra, no Nagasato, no Casey Short. Still competing here late. Houston grabbed an early goal, and they're looking for another that can help seal a title. It's Prince crossing Daly. And a picture worth 1,000 words on what that meant to her.
Prince again starting to play, getting the ball to Daly, back and forth with Prince. Just not a good touch to finish that off. I love how Daly's talked about doing this for the city of Houston. It's more than just the team, it's doing it for the city.
Ball toward Johnson. Colaprico. Was cracked from 35 yards away.
Prince again, sending that ball in, just not a clean finish for Daly. Pressure on her back. I know she's not thinking about the golden boot. She's thinking about, I just want to secure victory for my team.
Absolutely.
Even when she tweeted about being named tournament MVP, she was just like, I'm really more focused on the trophy. I want to bring the tournament trophy home to Houston.
Think about the ownership group and the two teams together. There's been such a concerted effort to say, hey, this is a turning point. This can be the start of long-term winning in Houston for the Dash. As Oyster stepped over and now sends back to Campbell. James Harden with a pretty vocal statement to that effect. I believe going into the semifinal, the NBA star ownership group for Dynamo and Dash.
And the owner of the team, the club, the entire club, Gabriel Brenner, he's in the stadium along with team president John Walker.
Ball across. Hansen, that was teasing for 4 different players, and Daly, the final sliding lack of touch. And we've reached the hydration break, and this month comes down to 15 minutes and what's sure to be a significant amount of stoppage time. It's Houston 1, Chicago 0. Back in a flash for the NWSL Challenge Cup Championship presented by Budweiser.
Rachel Daly's sense of humor, James Clarkson's sense of humor, the English sense of humor.
Mackenzie Duniak has come on for Savannah McCaskill. She is also, one would imagine, made her way back into some conversations moving forward, given her excellent conditioning, her hard work defensively. When she did drop into the 10, had some really insightful moments. Pressure coming from Chicago. Nothing left to lose here. Colaprico. Knotted out wide. Goralski got the inside step on Hansen, who slides in. A goal here wouldn't take us to extra time. A goal here could send us to penalties. Still plenty of time to go. For either of these teams, it would be their first NWS era championship trophy. For Houston, that's their only era. For Chicago, they had indeed won a trophy prior to joining the NWSL.
And for Chicago, back-to-back appearances in a league championship game. Of course, they fell to North Carolina last October, 4-0.
You know, 3 years ago, I asked Rory Dames, at the time had not been to a final, but he kept getting into semis. How much pressure is there? And he joked. Clearly it was a joke. He recognizes that there's a thirst and a hunger, Chicago, for a championship, but he said, I'm grateful that my owner is an Arsenal fan because top 4 has kept me around. Well, now he has a second consecutive shot to actually hoist the trophy.
I like that reference, especially on the last day of Premier League play.
Indeed, it feels even more cogent in this moment.
All right, who on Twitter asked you to use the word cogent in the broadcast?
Not a soul. Animal Crossing was one. We've enjoyed these Twitch streams, Josh Toll and Jen, the vast majority of the time. Incredible numbers on Twitch. There have been articles written about just how blown away the NWSL was by the support internationally. And for those on our NWSL who've followed along and those on Twitter, ball launched over the top. Latsko pursues the former Virginia product, brought down by Groom.
And I don't know why the league really should have been surprised when, since the very beginning, the games, the streams online were available worldwide. You know, we've seen that build up, and now partnering with Twitch, it's like just the ease, the accessibility.
Ball knocked across by Duniak, and that ricochets out the other side.
And I love the ability of the fans to engage during the broadcast.
And the shock wasn't in numbers relative to NWSL fans, of international soccer fans taking in one of the premier products that there is in professional women's soccer worldwide, but more so relative to Twitch, relative to the numbers they'd experienced before. The outpouring of support internationally compared to expectations set in previous years and through Twitch, this has been a real winner.
Which is why they put the work in to make sure they had international shipping on NWSLshop.com.
Indeed. There are new fans all over. There's going to be a yellow card here to Hansen that she hopes will be academic. It's for time wasting, but it does mean she's got to be just a little more careful in her last-ditch defending moving forward.
Well, and for all of our Twitch fans that want to keep watching, you can watch the games outside of USA and Canada as much as you like after the tournament on nwslsoccer.com/replays.
Easy enough. Latsko. Goal here for the Dash could seal a title. Latsko slides down. Good defense provided. Zoe Morse will come on for Katie Johnson with that initial touch. Ertz has moved higher up the field as a result.
And we haven't seen that much in this tournament. Usually it's been Ertz on the back line.
Haven't had to, in truth, right?
Right.
That's the ultimate decision for Chicago. With Tierna Davidson out, where do you best use Julie Ertz, knowing that you've already got Gordon alongside them as a center back pairing? Cross by Prince. This skips over the top. Latsko never could really corral that. Is there more here for the Dash? Floated too far for Daly. Goralski. Hill. This is an unfamiliar 7 minutes in stoppage time ahead for the Dash. A chance for them to take that pseudo-trademarked same old Dash and throw it in the trash permanently.
And take home that glass Budweiser trophy.
That's what it'll be full of, I would imagine. And there is a foul. Julie Ertz going over the top.
Seems like may have knocked on Alicia Chapman's ear. Chapman, as we mentioned before, one of the two players on the squad still remaining from the 2015 Dash. Looks like they did knock heads or ear to head. Unintentional, of course. Ertz usually using her head to score goals for the U.S. national team. I think like 16 of her 20 are with her head.
102 caps. Started, of course, as Julie Johnston, a great center back, and gradually moved into that midfield role under Jill Ellis over the last few years, and has written an entirely new narrative about herself.
And became the 40th U.S. national teamer to reach the 100-cap milestone this spring.
I think the narrative is she could be a best 11 caliber, World Cup caliber player at two different positions. Here's the cross toward Hill, bounces through Goralski, and there was a foul by Hill on that leaping attempt for the ball. And this time it's Oyster down, playing with that cracked rib. This has been an unbelievable performance in that context, especially by Oyster.
Leaving for the ball, brought down by Hill. Katya Korleva blowing the whistle. Oyster going all this time. He's probably thinking, no, James Clarkson, I want to stay on the field.
You don't do all this work, 7 games over a month's time, to come off right when you're about to hold the trophy for the first time. Comes down to Prince. Daly. Spun off of Morse. And now for Houston, if you don't get a clear-cut chance, you might try and take this to the corner and run time away. Goralski. Ball across. Campbell snatches that. For Houston, they felt like they played their best out-and-out full 90-minute performance against Portland. We'll make a change here. Simon comes on, primarily used as an outside back, replaces Nichelle Prince. If Prince wasn't on your radar before, she most certainly is now. Reminder that you get 5 substitutions. You're allowed to use them in 3 events plus halftime. There were no subs at the half. So with Houston having to use a sub early on to replace Christy Mewis, and they also brought on Latsko as well later, they've used all 3 events. They are essentially out of substitutes. Ball from Hill. Get all that right, Jen?
That sounded right to me.
Yep. All right. Ball across here. Again, this time for Duniak. Foul. Morse goes down. Free kick, Chicago. Simon, who's been in for several minutes now, shown yellow for that. It's going to be Julia Bingham coming on.
Her first minutes, no, I'm wrong. She played in the game against Portland. It's only Cameron Biegowski who we haven't seen for Chicago. Other than that, every single Chicago player has played in this tournament. Bingham drafted out of USC, part of their 2016 champion team.
The end for St. George. A performance in this tournament that Rory Dame says is worthy of being on the Canadian national team moving forward. She formerly captained the under-20s. Nair's forward for Chicago, driving a ball across. A numerical advantage here. It amounts to nothing as Campbell leaps upon this. We're in the 90th minute. Houston scored a penalty in the 5th.
I love seeing Alyssa Nair get up there with that free kick. Makes me think of 2015 when we had Michelle Betos score a goal as goalkeeper for Portland. Just, you know, it's a final, you know the result is so much more important when you see that pressure from a keeper. You know, it's not like the regular season where the game can end in a tie and maybe you're disappointed that you drop points. A winner has to be decided here. And it's not going to happen in extra time. It's either now or penalty kicks.
Pushed ahead. Goralski. Goralski turning. As we begin 5 minutes of added time.
And the tournament MVP getting her foot on the ball, waiting for a little help from her team before moving forward.
Ball ahead, slip through the center backs. Flag is down. This has to be it for the Dash. Groom! That's it. 2 goals up. What a moment for H-Town. What a moment for Shea Groom. And James Clarkson and the Dash are on the verge of their title. And it may have secured the Golden Boot for Daly, who played the pass.
Shea Groom with her 3rd goal of the tournament on an open net. Defense trying to get back there, can't do it. Nair coming all the way out. Now all Houston has to do, Mike, is hold it down.
And that's what it looks like in the secret virtual watch party powered by Google Meet. Shea Groom. The first minute of stoppage time from Rachel Daly. The cross here could Chicago create some further chaos late. Let's go. They pour it on now. Daly came in level with Lynn Williams. 3 goals, 1 assist. But it was
We don't see an assist yet in the official stats.
Will that change? Did play the ball. Gordon goes down. Houston scores 5 minutes in and with 5 minutes to go. Remarkably, 18th time these teams have met. Houston has won only twice. Last year, they did not beat a single playoff team the entire year. 10 losses, 2 draws. They finished in 7th, 12 points out of playoff position. The story quickly became, early in this tournament, will they turn over a new leaf on life for this Dash side after some early struggles? They came racing out of the gate, and then 2 games where it just didn't go for them. They felt like they took their eye off the ball. And now on the verge.
Jane Campbell with the chance to be the only keeper in the tournament with 4 shutouts.
And without her penalty kick heroics, we aren't talking about a championship. 80 seconds left in stoppage time.
Both of these teams coming into this semifinal with same number of goals scored compared to goals against. Of course, the pattern of how they got there is very different. And some may say, Chicago, they didn't have Casey Short, they didn't have Tierna Davidson. Houston, absolutely no U.S. allocated players to start with.
Remarkable. Had never made the postseason.
Came pretty close in 2015 in terms of they were 5th, but they were still 6 points back of 4th place that year. And that was the only year they didn't have a negative goal differential on the season.
They said every player on this roster, we're aware that they could win this tournament. They all felt it. Daly is your Golden Boot winner. The assist officially credited. 3 goals, 2 assists. And the tournament MVP. Collected here. Time now in the hands of Katja Korleva. Out to Hill. Hill with a strike. And this is going to be the most cathartic goal kick in Houston Dash history. These players are ready to race out and dash on. The NWSL was the first back.
I'm kind of expecting them more to have the big can of water to dump on the coach, right?
Not necessary. Run all the way down. First back to first crown. The Dash are Challenge Cup champions.